Hey, it's 11. The
What's
video
up?
didn't work for me. What's up? I'm Nick Roush. He's Tom
Hi,
Hart.
Nick.
We're hanging out today because why the heck not, right? It's May. We're having a little bit of fun. And this weekend, you're going to watch the Batcats and you're going to hear the dulcet tones of Tom Hart in the booth. So I thought, you know what? Let's have a chat with KSR's favorite play-by-play announcer. How does it feel knowing that you are the number one SEC network personality as voted on by the KSR listeners?
Isn't that kind of like having the best fajitas in Fargo? Like it's not exactly a high bar to clear. Who am I better than Peter Burns? I mean, what is that? You know, love you, Peter, mean it. But it's. Let me rephrase that. Scrub all of that. It is a true honor and a privilege. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure some fans will have their head on a swivel for some Easter eggs this weekend. You don't have to spoil any, but I do
Oh,
like. I do have a like. This is kind of a nerdy question, but you're about to talk on television about baseball for like I don't know 24 hours this weekend, and I know that you called the Kentucky baseball the brief appearance in Hoover, but like Monday happens, and then you just like get handed. Okay, you get to talk about Wake Forest and West Virginia. Here's your teams.
yeah.
Go talk about them all week. So what do you do to figure out how to, for the lack of a better term, fill the time to be able to talk about all of these teams over the weekend?
Great question. And first of all, great reminder. I am open to suggestions for Easter eggs. Because this is usually my downtime when it comes to listening to KSR. Like I'm heaviest in the fall and winter, obviously, and
Mm-hmm.
you get a little distracted, and the back cat talk is limited, so I'm not really dialed in right now. Although get well soon, Ryan. However, that being said, so there's just an amazing company, by the way. I just happen to be wearing their hat. It's called True Media. I came home with the other day. My wife said, "Is that a Trump hat?" And I said, "Oh, that's a poor logo if that's the case. That could really cause some confusion." But I've got, and not to get all statistical nerdy on you, but I've got analytical data on every one of these teams that will blow your mind. I mean, I could tell you what he's hitting on a Tuesday afternoon on an even date on, against fastballs. And it's really fun when you haven't seen a team and they're elite teams. Like Wake Forest has elite pitching. By the way, here's a nugget. That's the hardest throwing staff in the country, average fastball velocity. And you'll see a guy, game number one, whose average fastball velocity is second hardest in the country, and actually the hardest now because the guy in front of him blew out earlier this year for Oregon State. Um, so I can tell you his average fastball is 97.3. That gets into minutia real fast. Like your eyes are already glazing over. You'd rather talk about the attached tight end, and I get it. But it helps kind of figure out these teams that you haven't seen before and what makes them tick. And then you do a deep dive on who these players are and where they come from and who's notable, who's not, and hopefully we get some exciting games and it can just be ball one, strike one. But otherwise, even if we don't, like if every game is a blowout, there is so much going on big picture with 15 other regional sites going on that one of them ties directly into this site, so that there's information there that the viewing audience you hope would want to be apprised of.
Well, and I'm just shocked that they have that data because I know college baseball is obviously bigger than what it was, but it's
Yeah.
still fascinating because we'll lean on like PFF and some other sites for football, but like football kind of a big deal. It's just amazing that they have the data for. Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
Binghamton,
Well,
like
here's how they do it. Now, Binghamton's information may be a little bit more limited, but from what I understand, so all of the SEC schools have basically the same type of technology. You've got this Hawkeye video technology, you've got TrackMan technology, and then all of that is collected. By the way, MLB wanted this back in the day, especially in the SEC, because it makes their projections easier when it
mhm.
comes to the draft, right? Like it used to be, oh, that third baseman's got 28 home runs at the college level. Can he do it with wood bat, and has he done it against velocity? Right? Is this Of his 28 home runs, have 25 of them come in the non-conference against soft toss and lefties, or are they
Yeah.
coming against hard throwers that are going to be projectable in the big leagues? So MLB was behind a lot of this stuff in terms of, if not paying for it in some ballparks, getting teams to put it in so they could have access to that information. Let me bore you real quick.
For
Jackson
me.
Jelkin, right? We'll have an amazing Friday to kick off the tournament on ESPN2. Like one of the best pitching matchups we'll see all weekend, right? Because it's going to be true ace versus true ace. All right. So Jelkin throws curveball. Let me find something that's interesting. Opponents are hitting against his fastball. He throws a power sinker. They're hitting 263 and their OPS is 728. Okay, those are good numbers for an ace, but they're not incredible. They're not dominating. Against his curveball, opponents are hitting a $147, and he's only walked 5 guys when a net bat ends in a curveball. So, and he throws it second most. He throws his sinker 32% of the time. He throws his curveball 27% of the time. So that helps me understand who he is as a pitcher, and then we can do a deeper dive. It also helps some of these coaching staffs who have a real good feel for it. Wes Johnson's the best example at Georgia. He will play matchups based on what is that pitcher's strength, what is our hitter's strength. I've got a guy who hits sinkers really well. He's going to be in the lineup, say, against a guy like Jelkin. I've got a guy who hits four-seamers really well, but not sinkers. We'll give him the day off. It's kind of like the guys who do it well in terms of knowing the numbers and how to use it, they operate like a big league club in many ways in terms of how they put their lineup together.
Well, you mentioned Jelkin. It feels like the MO for Kentucky this year is win the games when Jelkin's pitching and then try to scrap something together elsewise. And I know it didn't work out in Hoover thanks to that sixth inning that kind of got away from him there with all the little dinks and dunks, the singles there. Yeah. But let's just say Kentucky does win this pitcher's duel with Jelkin. What do they have to do to be able to play spoiler and make a surprise run in the Morgantown Regional?
Well, I was going to bore you with another statistical nugget. I'm trying to find it here real quick. So here's the good news. West Virginia has a really good pitching staff, and their ace was Big 12 Pitcher of the Year. But his numbers are nowhere close to the guy that they'll face from Wake Forest, Chris Lavonis, in terms of raw stuff. In fact, he wasn't even a Friday night guy until in the season. He coming off Tommy John. He was a Sunday guy. And by the way, it stands to reason that West Virginia would hold its ace for game 2 because Binghamton, respectfully, like the last handful of games in the NCAA tournament, they're giving up like 18 runs a game. Like right. You could throw anybody out there, you're going to score 20 runs against Binghamton, if the statistical trends are accurate. Lavonis throws, here's what I was going to share with you. So I went through, like I was kind of thinking like a coach and figuring out, okay, what can the best hitters for Kentucky do against velocity? Well, Tyler Bell's hitting 403 against fastballs. That's really good. All 7 of his home runs have come against fastballs. However, take, for example, Caden Cloud. Caden Cloud's hitting 467 against fastballs in the range of 90 to 93. 467 is a really good number. That'll get you a lot of hits on Saturday, a lot of hits on Sunday. That'll probably get you hits against West Virginia's ace. Against Wake Forest ace, though, he's hitting only 111 against fastballs, 94 plus. So against true velocity, Caden Cloud's probably going to have his hands full. Okay, I'm nerding out. I swear I'm done with that. West Virginia's a very scrappy team, very similar to Kentucky. They want to run. They play good defense. The pitching staff is pretty good, but not overpowering. Offensively, they're kind of a year ahead of schedule in terms of the class that they have. I think it's fair to assume, and I haven't gone through the entire roster yet, Kentucky probably has more big leaguers on their roster, or at least more, high-level pro players than West Virginia does. So that's a really good matchup for Kentucky. And we've seen them historically against West Virginia postseason. It feels like they play West Virginia like every stinking year, right? Mm-hmm. So I think from a raw talent and measurable standpoint, Kentucky didn't match up really well against the top half of the SEC, which is why they had a hard time winning series. But they match up better against West Virginia on paper, and then you figure in like what's the home field advantage going to be like, what are the crowds going to be like. I think this is about as good as a well. I mean, they're the number 16 seed, right? The 16th one seed. So obviously, it's the best one seed that Kentucky could have hoped to match up with.
Well, we're going to be locked in all weekend long. Hopefully, Kentucky can win the pitcher's duel. ESPN 2, noon, Friday afternoon. Well, day baseball, great way to, I don't know, not pay attention at work for the second half of the day.
Just mail it in. Yeah.
Yo.
By the way, to go to a sports bar, like if maybe there's one in your area that's on its last leg and you like their wings, like, I don't know, noon on a Friday, pretty good day drinking moment, historically.
Yeah, there's probably some happy hour specials too, that you can imbibe in. Yeah, it'd be a great time. Maybe somewhere on South Broadway in Lexington. Come check it out for a last hurrah. Appreciate that. Yeah, nobody better at plugging than Tom Hart, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody better at plugging.
I've never accepted a free meal.
I got to ask you, Tom, you have been calling Kentucky football games for 13, more than that, many, many years. But for the last 13, it was watching Mark Stoops football, which at times, it could be a slog on those SEC Saturday nights against a Vanderbilt. And, maybe they're completing 7 of 14 passes for 50 yards, and it's just turn around and hand the rock off to Benny Snell. Are you mentally prepared for having Will Stein calling plays in Lexington? How weird is that going to be?
Or the Georgia game during COVID when Kirby just said, okay, we're just going to hand it off. Like we may only score 10, but they can't score on us. Like I remember doing that game. By the way, that was during COVID. We did the games remotely. That was Halloween. I had lost power at my house. A tree fell up the street. I had to there's a bunch of equipment in this room. I had to throw all the equipment in a box, take it to my spotter's house, and do the game from his dining room table. The highlight was late fourth quarter, his son walking by, because it was Halloween, walking by dressed as a squirrel to go out trick-or-treating. So, yeah, that was the highlight of that game.
With Joey Gatewood at quarterback. Who could
Joey Gatewood.
Unforgettable.
The thing about the offense being stuck in the mud over the years is like every coordinator that was in there wanted to do more. And they wanted the freedom to do more, right? I mean, Lynn Bowden was the most electric. I mean, there's some pretty good quarterbacks that came through, right? I mean, Steven Johnson had some huge wins, but Lynn Bowden brought electricity that nobody else was able to bring. And I felt like Mark Stoops, and he wouldn't argue with this, I don't think, when things got tight, he fell back to his personality, which was defense first. Don't make any mistakes. And I'm not saying he was wrong to do that either, because a play one against South Carolina, when you attempt the double reverse and you fumble it on your own 18, that's the ball game. Like, that's it. Game over. So, yes, to answer your question, I cannot wait to see what the new era of Kentucky offensive football looks like.
Well, and just generally speaking, like, there were a couple times last year where you had fans in the stands chanting John Summerall, right? But there's also a sense that John Summerall is kind of like Mark Stoops in very many ways, whereas Will Stein is the exact antithesis, right? Like, we're going to play aggressive, we're going to get after it. And, I'm not willing to say that it's going to work against this schedule that they have lined up. But I do think it will get a lot of Kentucky fans back in a way that they haven't been, just because it's going to look so much different this fall with a quarterback in Kenny Minchie who seems to check the right boxes, albeit he's very unproven at the position.
There's nothing better than promise when it comes to the offensive side of the ball to get fans engaged, to get them in the stadium. It buys you a honeymoon period, right? Especially if you put up points on the board early and you give proof of concept. But I think I think in general, the approach here is, what is Will Stein's background versus, and it's an unfair comparison, but it's a direct comparison because he's replacing him, versus Mark Stoops' background, right? Like, Mark Stoops is Iowa football at his core.
Mm-hmm.
You can make arguments like, what is Will Stein's identity? But to me, right off the bat, he's Oregon football, right? Like, those are two opposite ends of the spectrum, from style of play to uniforms to anything else. Like, so everybody does this. It's human nature. When the times get tight or you get nervous or the pressure's on, you revert to your core. And so I think that's what will give Will Stein a leg up in all of this, is like, okay, reverting to my core is, let's put some points on the board, right? Let's do this. If I remember correctly, Oregon put 55 on USC when Kiffin was there. And this is pre-Will Stein, obviously. This is years ago. But that game is what caused Lane Kiffin to march into Nick Saban's office and say, hey, we've got to open. Forever been.
Yeah.
Did you lose my feed?
I did for a second.
Sorry.
Even though your screen is
now
black.
You sound like Donald Duck.
Oh, no. Awesome. That's not good. I can hear you, but I can't see you. I don't. You went.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah. We can still hear you. That works.
Okay. I've never looked better, apparently. So Kiffin walks in the office and he said, we've got to change. Like, we're at USC and Oregon hung 55 on us, and they did it running 4 stinking plays. And me and Sark are up all night trying to reinvent this offense and pulling and running, 80 plays. And they hung 55 on us with 4 plays. Like, that needs to be the new era of college football. That's where we need to be. And that's kind of foundationally what I think of when I go back to, like, okay, what is Oregon football? Like, that's it. That's where it was built. Whether you go back to Chip Kelly or go all the way back to Dan Fouts.
Oh, or Rich Brooks. Yeah, there's a Kentucky callback. Well, as great as you look, Tom, I won't keep you on talking into the abyss much longer. But there were 6 new head coaches. I guess that's how the math works out in the SEC. Because Kiffin and Golding, that makes things weird. But what was the hire that you were like, this is I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm fascinated to watch it unfold. Which one of those hires really jumped out to you that have you fired up for this fall in SEC football?
We'll take Will Stein out of the mix because of the present company. I mean, I think that's fascinating based on the changing of the cultures and his modern approach to it. But to me, it's Florida, right? Because everybody understands Florida's potential. Everybody has seen it. If you've been a college football fan for 20 years, you know what they can do because of the personnel that's in their backyard. Do they have a coach who can finally get all of that together? They were a hot mess when it came to Lexington last year. I mean, they had dudes opting out. They had wide receivers quitting. They quarterback situation was, untenable. Well, what does that look like with a guy in charge who I don't know, at the very least seems to be more engaged than the previous coaching staff was? So to me, it's Florida because we've seen what the ceiling is when things are going right at that program, and it's Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks and national championships.
Well, and the way Florida did it when they were at their peak, it was with offensive guys doing things that other people weren't doing. Urban Meyer had the kind of spread stuff with Tebow and the running quarterbacks and all that threw the game off. And then Spurrier obviously was Spurrier, whereas Summerall is recruiting, defense, and then bringing in Buster Faulkner, who has that sort of quarterback running element, has Aaron Fallow from Georgia Tech. So that's it's like, what are you willing to sacrifice to be good? Because I think some of Florida fans, they want to be the flashy, fun offense. But you know what? Are they willing to give that up to not get their ass kicked by Kentucky every year? Because that's what's happened. Kentucky's kicking Florida's ass regularly, Tom. It's great. I love every second of it. And there's another part of me, too, that wonders, like, hey, Tennessee's been kicking Kentucky's ass, but, like, maybe Stein can figure out Hypo a little bit. Stoops and Brad White couldn't, but maybe Stein might be able to tilt the scales a little bit back in this rivalry.
Listen, what you said about Florida and Faulkner, here's all you need to know is Faulkner turned Haynes King, who was a shell of a quarterback at Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher. Fisher, absolutely. And I told Haynes this. We had a game his junior year, and I told him how impressed I was just with his confidence from his A&M time to what he turned into at Tech. And it may have been unsaid in the moment or off the record, but yeah, I mean, Jimbo Fisher cuts you down and grinds you into dirt and then expects you to perform on Saturday. Like, that ain't it. But what Buster did with Haynes King was nothing short of a miracle relative to what he was at A&M. So, and if Haynes King had been, Lynn Bowden, then it would have been an electric offense. I think Faulkner is a good enough coordinator that he can take anybody and work with their skill set and turn them into a star. And yeah, it hasn't historically been at Georgia Tech. But by the way, think about the head coach that he was under, very Mark Stoops like, right?
Yes.
Offensive line coach, O-line guy in the trenches, da-da-da. Other side of the ball, but still very much like that, ground and pound. I wouldn't be worried about that part of it if I were a Florida fan. Like, I would say we've got the right OC, and he can make our quarterbacks better, and he can make them better immediately.
Well, this video couldn't have gone any better. I mean, you look great, Tom. I think this should be your new what do they call it? Not the mug shot, the glamour shots. Do they still do those, by the way?
Yeah, there's an 8.5 glossy around here somewhere. I'll autograph it. I'll send it your way.
I need
for
you.
A podcast host, you make a great director. You know that?
I need to see some like 90s versions of the Saturday Night Crew where you're at like the J.C. Penney and they're kind of black and white and it looks like you're auditioning for a job. I want to see you all hand those out when you start showing up to games in the fall. I think those would be a big hit, especially if they're autographed. Fans would love it.
Maybe the Dwayne Johnson turtleneck with the gold chain on the outside of the turtleneck.
You can't forget the fanny pack either. Can't forget that.
No, yeah, we'll mix in the fanny pack. I mean, I wear it every day. All
right, Tom. Well, safe travels to Morgantown, and hopefully we get to hear you call a couple of Kentucky wins this weekend for the Worldwide Leader. And thanks so much for joining us.
Nick, thanks for having me. I wish you could hear your voice on my end because it sounds like you've been sucking on helium all morning, which, by the way, for those of you that know him personally, it's not a stretch to imagine.
Thanks, Tom.